Welcome to the Monday Night Raw review here on the WWE podcast. It is Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. We've got a lot to discuss tonight, but I've got a co-host here to help me through it. Ian, you guys have heard him before. He's done a podcast with me in the past, a patron of the show. I'd encourage you guys to go on Patreon as well, because that's one of the benefits of going to Patreon and becoming a supporter of the show, because you get to come on and do just this. And I had a lot of fun talking with Ian with Monday Night Raw, with all the big stories coming out of it. Brock Lesnar destroying the Alpha Academy, Paul Heyman's interaction with him, of course, the women's disqualification that between Carmella and Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch demanding she be in the championship picture, and so much more, including Edge's latest teaser. So we're going to talk about that and the entire show right after this. So in addition to pro wrestling that I need every day, I don't know about you, I need coffee every day, and I need quality coffee. That's why I go with coffeeofvalhalla.com. They get fresh roasted specialty coffee, roasted the day it ships to your door. Again, it's coffeeofvalhalla.com. That's coffee of VALHALLA.com, because the owner is a former service member trying to take care of his battle buddies. He donates 50% of the proceeds to StopSoldierSuicide.org. So order today and use discount code 10OFF, all one word, for a 10% discount, or you can subscribe and save 15% off of your order. So go get some coffee again at coffeeofvalhalla.com, coffeeofvalhalla.com, guys, and also donate to a great cause and have a great cup of coffee, guys. coffeeofvalhalla.com.
Yo, so I co-host an entertaining, funny, and hopefully insightful weekly podcast called Bacio Death Trip, BACIO Death Trip. It's all about those late 90s, early 2000s new metal albums. You know the ones. There are some classics, some best forgotten, some underrated drop D masterpieces. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. If you like it, awesome. Welcome aboard. If it's not your thing, all good. That's it. That's the pitch. That's Bacio Death Trip. You can get it wherever you get your soon-to-be award-winning podcasts.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me. Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the Monday Night Raw review, everybody. Tonight we've got Ian with us. He was with us before, and we are now back together once again to talk about Monday Night Raw, as we are, my gosh, a little over 2.5 weeks or so from SummerSlam, which takes place July 30th, which will be coming up before you know it. And we've got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about tonight with Monday Night Raw, with, of all people, Dolph Ziggler ending the show. So we'll talk about that and much more. But first of all, welcome to the show, Ian. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Glad to be back after a month of absence, and just ready to rock and roll with you guys. Let's do it.
Absolutely. And I mean, this show was highlighted. We'll get to Dolph Ziggler, but it was highlighted by Brock Lesnar, who opened the show, and he had some things to say about Roman Reigns being, quote, high on the hog since he beat him at WrestleMania. And then he's referred to Reigns as a hog and talked about how he slaughters hogs on his farm all the time. Lesnar was interrupted by Heyman, and Theory ends up coming out. And what did you think about all this? Of course, Alpha Academy comes out, and yeah, they try to attack Lesnar for some unknown reason. They were just kind of the sacrificial lamb, so to speak. But Lesnar ends up destroying them. F5 on Otis through the table. Did you enjoy this segment at the beginning?
Probably right in the beginning, because it's more that shock reaction, just get Brock Lesnar right in the beginning. I see that trend for Raw or even SmackDown, where they started off at a high level, but then it kind of tears down. But I mean, even with Brock coming out, they were late on his pyro, and he even laughed about it. He acknowledged, he kind of did his movement, and the pyro came like 5 seconds later. But yeah, and then just I don't know what's going on with this, with Paul Heyman, because if I don't know, like going back to SmackDown and just the way he's talking about Brock Lesnar, you always remember his intro to Brock Lesnar and how much passion he has into it. And I don't know, for me, I kind of got like maybe another Paul Heyman, like hinting on betraying again. I just got different vibes from him. Cause when he talks about Roman, it's, he still praises him, but you can tell he wants to do the reigning, defending, what he did with Brock. And then, even with, Austin Theory, I don't know. I'd like to see him just kind of lose that briefcase right away. I don't think he's, I think he's got a lot of potential, but it's way too soon for him to be a champion. And, I don't know what was going on when he, showed the video of, Brock F5ing him at Elimination Chamber, and they just like blacked out half the video. So, but yeah, I mean, it's still a good intro for Raw for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was a strong introduction to the show. I enjoyed how Brock didn't say "Welcome to Monday Night Raw." That was a plus for me. But I enjoy Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman and Lesnar together is always a great combination. They have such good chemistry together. Brock isn't the best guy on promo. Brock is not the most well-spoken, I guess, or eloquent speaker ever, but he makes up for that in presence, and that is what Brock Lesnar brings in terms of his abilities and his positives. On top of the fact that he's an absolute monster at 45 years old. And Theory, like you said, yeah, I don't know. I'm a fan of Theory. Like, I get what Vince sees, and I understand why he's in that position, but I agree it's a little too soon for Theory to capture a major championship. There's a few steps before we get there. I'm not ready for it either, and I hope that it's a failed cash-in. I really do hope it's too soon for him, and I hope it'll be a failed cash-in at SummerSlam, which he's called his shot. I don't know why he's being so open about it. You'd imagine that a heel would not be so open about his plan, about what he's going to do at SummerSlam. So, yeah, overall, I give this like a B rating. I think it was a solid open. It gave you what you wanted. Brock Lesnar destroying people. It gave you Paul Heyman, who can sell ice to an Eskimo. And like you said, it was interesting too with Paul Heyman, as you noted, that Paul Heyman could be turning back to Brock. The only evidence for that is, at least on Raw that I saw, is that the Usos were watching him backstage. If you notice that, it was only a few seconds that they shot to the Usos watching Paul Heyman with kind of these this skeptical look on their face about Brock, or looking at Paul Heyman when he was speaking. So, do you really think that he could turn back to Brock? I mean, would you feel like that'd be a little kind of weird, or do you think that could happen?
I would like to, but the thing with Brock is he's not full time. So, I think he, is maybe another 6 months to a year, or just kind of coming sparingly, like, how like Goldberg would randomly come about. But, I don't know. I think, with as much as I don't want this to happen, with whether or not Roman Reigns turns face again, I just don't want it to be that angle where, like, Paul Heyman screws him over, and then it's a whole segment of him trying to get revenge on Paul Heyman, sort of like Brock did back in like 03, 04.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Just like, I think Paul he does great, but I think now Roman has obviously improved his mic skills tremendously, and I just don't think he needs Paul Heyman so much anymore. And Paul, I think maybe once or twice has really interfered with matches, but I don't know. He kind of seems like an afterthought now with that whole family. So,
mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That is a weird dynamic, given how talented Paul Heyman is on the mic. He's a guy that is just so good and has carried Brock Lesnar through his Universal Championship run several years ago. I mean, he was excellent, and he cut some A+ promos on a weekly basis. But yeah, it's almost as if they don't need Heyman right now. I mean, he's an addition. He's not a subtraction, but it's not needed for Paul Heyman to be there because Brock Lesnar's just being himself. That's Brock Lesnar out there right now, and that's what's fun to watch. So, all right, well, let's get on to the show here in terms of wrestling, and we got Finn Balor versus Rey Mysterio. Finn Balor beats Rey Mysterio after hitting the coup de grace. And Ray and Dominic were confronted by the Judgment Day, with Balor and Damian Priest suggesting Dominic should join before calling Ray a bad father. So what did you think of this?
Yeah, with the Judgment Day, I had very high hopes because with Edge sort of being the leader, and this was a good way to prolong his career, where he didn't have to be in a lot of matches. Obviously, he's still in the backstage mentoring other wrestlers, but to be on TV and mentoring, whether as a good guy or a bad guy, it's getting these younger guys. I mean, obviously, they're not the youngest; they're not in their 20s, but without him, there's no direction, and it's almost. I kind of laugh at it. It almost reminds me of the Retribution. It's just they come in hot, and now it's just sort of an afterthought. And all of a sudden, Finn Balor's wearing his long black tights. I don't know if that's just to make him more evil but I don't know. After Finn being a face for so long, I have no fear in him. There's no I think if anything, bring the demon out of him, just sort of make him scary. But we've been wanting a push for a Dominic heel turn for a while, but I've just noticed over the last couple months, it just seems like he's using his father Ray as a crutch. I think I said this in the last podcast I was in. He needs to go down to NXT and work on a few things. His moves and stuff are great, but his promo skills, you forget, when you go back to Austin Theory, I forget that he's 24 years old, but his mic skills are unbelievable. When Dominic's on the mic, he sounds like he's in high school. So, it was an okay match, but, we've seen hints like that where, all right, maybe he will join or he'll turn on his dad and then nothing happens. But I do hope something changes in that, or they need to add to the Judgment Day two people. You need a stable. You need at least 3 people in there, and not one of them has really. I mean, obviously Finn has talked more, but there's really no leader in that. And who knows with this whole mysterious videos and we all know it's Edge. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he somehow is going to go back to Judgment Day, and it was just tricking us all, but they need more people in the Judgment Day, because you give it another month and they're not even gonna be in a pay-per-view, let alone Raw.
It's really amazing, where the Judgment Day was just 5-6 weeks ago, being an absolute shining light of Raw, to just cutting good promos. They had direction. They felt important. They were helping build the younger stars, which is the point of every faction, and that's what it should be. And it was awesome. And then Rhea Ripley, of course, joins, and you're like, this is great. And Edge gets banished, which made no sense. And then Rhea Ripley, of course, gets an injury. She's out. And the group disappears before Money in the Bank, and they were just off TV for weeks. And it's amazing. I mean, just off of a cliff. And, yeah, those promo videos, I think, are for Edge. I don't know how they're not. I said it was Bray Wyatt. I think I've finally been convinced that it's Edge, given especially this week with the John Cena hat or the shirt or something that was burning, the You Can't See Me merchandise. It has to be Edge. And I do wonder, like you said, does he dare rejoin Judgment Day? I mean, maybe he said, I needed to get that weakness out of me. Thank you guys for beating it out of me. Or, maybe he does come back as this darker character. I don't see how he comes back as the Edge that we saw that returned at the Rumble in 2020. I don't know how you go back to that. So it's interesting, this for me, is what character evolution has Edge gone through upon his return, which I'd imagine is going to be at SummerSlam or before SummerSlam, probably taking on Finn Balor, who is, I guess, the de facto leader of that group. But, boy, they certainly don't make you feel like they have a leader, like you said.
No, and I could see if Edge was, back to, the baby face and, sticking or kind of joining alliance with AJ Styles, because obviously he has really no role at this point, which is unfortunate with, he's got maybe a couple years left in him and they're just not using him well. But the closest I could think with Edge, and even though we already used it, is kind of going back to the Brood. I mean, that would be sort of like a mixture of like being like, you know, this like awesome dude, but also still being a face. But who knows? I mean, creative has done some weird stuff over the years, so God only knows what we'll see in Edge. I mean, I'm assuming, you know, that with Edge, you know, I have no idea. It's all up to creative, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, it is, and I think with Edge, the fans are going to cheer him when he comes back. That's going to be the most fascinating thing to me. That the fans are just going to they're going to embrace him upon his return, even though he came back. He did an excellent job as a heel, running down us, talking about how miserable our lives are. You know, talking about how he wishes he did this a long time ago. All this stuff, and I think that the fans are going to forget all that pretty quickly, and they're just going to embrace his return. Unless he rejoins. So Edge's return is certainly fascinating, but I think it's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks for sure. So, all right, moving on. The Raw Women's Championship. Carmella defeats Bianca Belair, and it came from a distraction by Becky Lynch at ringside because it was via countout, so it wasn't really. And Carmella pretending that she won is, I mean, I get why they did that, but also at the same time, if you're at that level, how do you not know that a championship doesn't change hands by a count out? But I get it. So Lynch said that she deserves a title shot before the match, and that she's being told she has to jump through a whole bunch of hoops when Carmella is just handed this opportunity. And so I think the match was fine. Carmella is, to me, she's not quite at the level of Becky Lynch, I don't think. I think Becky Lynch is, and Bianca Belair and, you know, those elite top female wrestlers are obviously, I think, much better in the ring than Carmella. But Carmella seeming, for some reason, they're just deciding to take her and stick her into the main event week after week now. And I don't hate it. I'm not a Carmella fan. She's a bit of a Divas era hangover for me. Not quite that bad, but she feels a little bit like an overlap. And just because her whole gimmick is about how she looks. It's like, doesn't get any more superficial than that. And that's the exact definition of what was the problem in the Divas era and before that. So Carmella, to me, just has that vibe to her. But she held up her end, and I think the match was okay. I think we're going to get a triple threat, given the outcome here that Carmella didn't really lose the match, or rather didn't truly win, and Bianca didn't truly lose, given it was a count out. I think they're going triple threat here at WrestleMania or at SummerSlam with Becky Lynch. What did you think about the match, and where do you think they're going for SummerSlam?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the match in general, it was, you know, I think that's the thing that's tough is like with, you know, with wrestlers like Carmella, I think they are a lot more athletic than what they see on TV. But again, they don't have much creative control, certain wrestlers, so they can only do certain moves, especially to make the top face, the top champion, the most dominant. You know, I thought it was, especially for, you know, diehard fans that, you know, have brains in this, you know, Bianca, you're the face of Raw, and you don't know that there's going to be a count out. I thought that was kind of a very lazy way of ending the match there. This doesn't because in a way, like, I understand that might set up for the triple threat, but it's like, you don't really need to protect, Carmella in this situation. Like, I've lost count how many times they've had a championship match. I swear she and Bianca and Carmella have had the most matches against each other for that championship. But I would assume, you know, I'd like to think that Becky would retain, you know, not retain, but would take the belt off of Bianca. Like, I know we've spoken about it before, but it's time to do a little bit of rebranding for Bianca, because she's getting pretty close already. She hasn't been here this long, but she's getting pretty close to that, you know, that John Cena, the same gimmick, the same talks, all that. And she can easily use all the words and gimmicks that she does and turn it right into a heel. I don't know how they would do that, but that's my guess, and that's what I'm hoping for.
I think it's really super. All they have to do with Bianca is just give her an attitude. She already has everything else set up. I mean, she is a heel through and through, other than just she comes off endearing. If she comes off a little arrogant, EST is the definition of narcissism. You're saying the fastest, the strong. I mean, you're just the most superior human being ever, is what she's saying, and somehow she's been able to pull it off as a babyface character, which is really truly amazing when you think about it. So credit to her, but it's an inch away from being a heel. It's just a small tweak, I think. And like you said, the reaction is starting to really wane. And I feel the same way about Ronda Rousey. I know we're not talking about SmackDown, but Ronda Rousey's kind of in the same boat. I would argue she's even further along to that heel turn. I would love to see Bianca and Ronda both flip. I think they're both ready to go. I think you would freshen their characters up instantly. I think Ronda, especially Ronda, when you look at her, but Bianca and Carmella, I agree. I don't understand why they did this to protect Carmella. The only reason they did it wasn't with the intent, I think, to protect Carmella, but more to just add a third person to the match at SummerSlam. That's why I think they did it. They didn't go, oh, guys, we got to protect Carmella. It was just find a way to not give a clean finish so that Carmella has an argument to get into the match at SummerSlam. That's why I think they did it, rather than just having Bianca versus Becky. But honestly, I don't know why they wouldn't just do straight up Bianca Becky at SummerSlam, because that would be very apropos for what happened last year with Becky returning and doing her 20-some second victory over Bianca. I mean, there's a lot of story there. Now, they could still do it. They could still do it, but to me, this hints at Carmella being involved.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna have the 20th match of Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, why can't we just have another? And these are two stud athletes that can put on a show, and they don't need a third person to change up the dynamic. And I don't know, make a stipulation out of it, a tables match. Like the match that they had with Becky and Asuka. It's like that, like, of course, like they do something like that on obviously the main event, but on Raw, like that's a pay-per-view type match, and it's like you add just a steel cage or something like that. They would do wonders with it. Those two are incredible talent, and you don't need a third person to kind of mix it up or whatnot. And for me personally, I think Becky is so popular with the fans that I prefer her being a face than a heel. Her heel is just, it's more whiny and just like, it's not intimidating, and it's already old. It's just, I don't believe it at all. I just think that switch with Bianca. The only thing is with Bianca, I would just hope, because obviously a lot of people that switch over to a heel, like reference to Seth Rollins, he cut like a lot of his athletic ability, because of his heel characteristic. And I'm just, with how Bianca is, she's so athletic. I would hope that, she wouldn't, take away some of her moves because she would be a heel, sort of like Rhea Ripley. Like Rhea's definitely taken a few of her moves away, because, certain heels have to do that, to get, to steal certain wins or to cheat and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You want to please the crowd, but at the same time, that's just kind of the style of today's wrestling. Is everyone's athletic, everyone seems to be a gymnast. It's very, very showmanship. It's so I get you definitely. I mean, Bianca has a very babyface style to her because she's so good in the ring. She's super strong. She puts on excellent matches. But there's ways to kind of tweak that where she doesn't do crowd pleasing moments. She doesn't, maybe she changes her music and just gets an attitude. I think that there's something there for that. I honestly, as I'm playing this out in my head with SummerSlam, I could see, fine, it's a triple threat. Say Becky's involved, Carmella versus Bianca. I could see Becky winning and then having maybe Becky pins Carmella, as Carmella will be added to that match really as the one to just take the pinfall. And then Bianca is standing there after Becky wins clean and then just attacks Becky from behind and goes berserk on her. I think the crowd would turn on Bianca and they would side with Becky because, like you said, Becky really never has been a true heel. They didn't change her music, which I think was a big mistake. And fans just don't want to hate her. It's like a Stone Cold turn. People they don't, like, they get on board a little bit, and then they see her and they hear that music and they're like, yeah, but we just love this character. It's hard to hate Becky Lynch. She's doing as best she can, but there's that resistance from fans that I think that they would be more than willing to switch back. I think they could do a double turn here. Bianca turns heel, Becky turns babyface. I think you could have that at SummerSlam.
Yeah, and who knows? I know the whole draft is a joke, but maybe Bianca, takes her talents back over to SmackDown and tries a new rival with somebody else, or hey, you never know. Maybe she creative has done weird things before, but you never know. Maybe she'll take over Rhea and join the Judgment Day.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, there's a lot that could happen. Of course, we'll pretend that the draft exists. I'll be shocked if they do that this year, just because of, no, I won't be, because they'll have it and then say they still have a draft, and yet people are coming back and forth with no explanation. So, all right, well, let's move on here. AJ Styles and Ezekiel versus The Miz and Ciampa. And AJ Styles and Ezekiel beat Miz and Ciampa via disqualification. Ciampa refused to stop attacking Styles, and that's really what caused the DQ. Before the match, we got Logan Paul and that whole nonsense with The Miz. What did you think about this matchup that ended in a DQ and Logan Paul?
Yeah, it's quite interesting that they're having Logan Paul be more of a face, or trying to present him as one. I don't think the crowd is going to believe on that, but he definitely has the athletic ability to be a pretty good wrestler. I think he'll still need a few more tag team matches to kind of get his feet wet. But with Ciampa, it's just it's unfortunate because attaching him with Miz, not always the worst thing, but it's like, if anyone has watched NXT or just watched, some of his clips on YouTube, like, he doesn't need any of that assistance. He, when he first came up, we're like, is he a face? Is he a heel? I think he would have been a great addition to the Judgment Day. He kind of almost reminds me of, like, if he was in, the Judgment Day, he kind of reminds me of, like, Butch. He's just like a scrappy fighter and just looking to have a cheap hit on anyone. And I don't know, they're definitely wasting his talent right now. And, I'm not sure if Ciampa will, get back at Miz, because, Miz kind of just bailed out at the last possible second like he usually does. But hopefully we can get Ciampa on a pay-per-view, even if it's a small segment, but not sure if they're leaning towards another tag team matchup, where Logan Paul is facing Miz, and I don't know what the partner situation will be, or if it will be one-on-one. But with all the practice, I think, and the training that Logan Paul has, and obviously the experience that Miz has, I think Miz could, help him guide through a match, a 5 to 8 minute match. Doesn't have to be, a long one either. So.
I mean, Logan Paul, first of all, I really have no interest in him. Now, my tune may change as I see him evolve in WWE, but to me, I still look at him as kind of the celebrity that's coming in, and that WWE is simply trying to capitalize on the 23 million subscribers he has on YouTube, and I get it. I understand from a business perspective why they're doing that. I totally understand it. But from a fan perspective, it's just like, this dude is, like you said, if they're trying to hilariously bring him in to get the fans to cheer for him, I don't know what they're thinking. They tried this. Didn't they already try this like twice at WrestleMania last year? And, Kevin Owens gave him a stunner, and like people lost their minds. And, they have lost every single time they've tried to bring him in as a heel. He is born to be a heel. He's a celebrity that has come in. He's done some things questionable in his past that people may or may not have forgotten about. He feels like an entitled D-bag. I mean, he just got that feeling to him, and that's a compliment if you're bringing him in as a heel. If they're going to, I want to see the reaction. If they try to position him, and it seems like they are, positioning him as a babyface, I would love to see that, because as much as The Miz has been a heel for pretty much his entire career, the fans will side with The Miz because he has been there longer. There's the respect factor. Logan Paul's an outsider. He has taken the fast track to WWE because of his social media status. That's the only reason he's in the position he is because of social media. Other than, I mean, yes, he's a good athlete. He's a legitimate tough guy, no doubt. But social media is the only reason he's where he's at. And so I think people are going to see that, and they're going to boo the hell out of Logan Paul. There's just no way. And next week they're going to get a test run because he's coming to Raw.
Stay right there. The WWE podcast will return after this quick break.
So in addition to pro wrestling that I need every day, I don't know about you, I need coffee every day, and I need quality coffee. That's why I go with coffeeofvalhalla.com. They get fresh roasted specialty coffee, roasted the day it ships to your door. Again, it's coffeeofvalhalla.com. That's coffee of VALHALLA.com, because the owner is a former service member trying to take care of his battle buddies. He donates 50% of the proceeds to StopSoldierSuicide.org. So order today and use discount code 10OFF, all one word, for a 10% discount, or you can subscribe and save 15% off of your order. So go get some coffee again at coffeeofvalhalla.com, coffeeofvalhalla.com, guys. And also donate to a great cause and have a great cup of coffee, guys. Coffeeofvalhalla.com.
Welcome back to the WWE podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
Yeah, and I mean that, and it shows you right there at WrestleMania, two heels that won, and one heel turns on the other heel, and they still cheered for The Miz after that, or maybe they were kind of just in shock, but they were just like, I'm glad you did it to Logan Paul, So yeah, I mean maybe it would be easier if it was his brother Jake Paul coming out. I think. To my knowledge, it seems like he's got more heat on him than Logan Paul. But yeah, it would be interesting. And Miz is one of those guys where, yes, we're annoyed by his repetition of Miz TV and the same quotes that he'll always say. But believe it or not, when he's done, we're gonna miss him. We're gonna miss him dearly. So.
Yeah. No, I think The Miz, like, I crap on him on a weekly basis only because I feel like there's no character evolution for him, and they just will not stop with Miz TV on Raw. It's the most overused talk show ever. I don't understand. They use it as like a catch-all, and they know it's a landing spot where it can be anything they need it to be. So I understand the reason they do it, but it's just too much, and there's so little character evolution from The Miz. He's good on the mic, but it's like I'm watching a rerun every week with The Miz, with how he looks, the way he talks, the way his show is laid out. It's just insert wrestler X, and The Miz does this and this and this, and he's going to say this. That's the problem I have with his whole character. So, but the match itself here, I don't want to crap on the match, but it ended in a DQ because Ciampa refused to stop attacking Styles, so the ref stopped the whole match, and Ciampa, like you said, he's going to be protected as he should be. But the way that you're talking about NXT, when Vince brings up a talent, he is going with the assumption that nobody that watches Raw or SmackDown has ever seen this guy. So he can't use that pretext to say, oh, well, we're not going to do it the way we normally do because people know who he is. He is going with the assumption that most people don't know who the hell he is, so they have to bring him up in a different way, which I think is a big mistake. Honestly, all they have to do is just run a video package of NXT of what he's accomplished, and people will be caught up in like 2 minutes, even if you've never seen his work. So, I mean, that's a whole nother issue. But they're protecting Ciampa as they should. The guy's an excellent worker. He's good on the mic. There's really no complaints here, but I don't want him being viewed as this rookie. Like, that's not who Ciampa is.
No. And, that's one thing I'm hoping, from what the news I've gotten, where Triple H, I guess, he's back in NXT and I guess has an even bigger role than what he did before. And, with everything that's happening with Vince, I've always been for the last 3-4 years, I'm just waiting for someone else to take the reins. Like, it's just, I know he's probably just looking at the numbers and seeing how much money he's making, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like you could take anyone from like that watches it and they're in high school or in college and they can write better episodes than this. It's just sad sometimes, but we hope for the best. That's all we can pray for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is. It's true. I mean, and maybe you get your wish with this hush money. We'll see.
Yeah.
We will see. All right. Next up is Alexa Bliss and Asuka, who defeated Nikki ASH and Doudrop after Bliss hit Nikki with a DDT. What did you make of this?
I was actually happy to see the DDT as like her finisher. People like for a while that, I think that was, I could be wrong, but I think it was Jake the Snake. Mm-hmm. That was his finisher. It could be somebody else, but, that really was like, a very, impactful move. And just her being able to do that and get the 1, 2, 3 was great. But also at the end of it, when her hands were raised up and everything, I was sort of waiting for her to hit her partner. Like, I don't know, like it wouldn't make any like real sense, but it's just like, at least it would give her character, like she's almost like just neutral. She's not a good person, a good wrestler, or like a bad, face or heel. She's just kind of, I don't know what is going on right now. Again, that's another person that could have easily just been thrown into the Judgment Day. Like, she would have fit in perfectly with, how she was doing that. And she really does have a lot of talent and they're just not using it. The only thing I could think of, with these random tag team matches is if they're just sort of testing it out and see, all right, let's not bring out these tag team titles out or have some type of tournament. Let's just see like how many type of, tag matches we can get. What's the volume of the women's division where we can actually make this legitimate, because we don't want to bring this back out again and have it be an ultimate failure. So that's one thing I could think of, because there was like really there's no storyline between that. That was just a random match, which, hey, I'd rather see a lot more matches than these, talking segments, but that's what I kind of got out of it was I'm hoping that this is sort of like a test run to see, do we have enough, female tag teams and ones that have good chemistry and actually have, characters that make sense to each other, and can we continue this, in the long run? And I think that's a safe way of doing it than just throwing out the tag team titles, whether they're vacant or, Naomi and Sasha come back or whatnot. But that's what I got out of it. It's just more of a test run to see what we can do with the tag team division.
Yeah, I got to say, I don't miss the tag team championships. And I don't hear anybody else saying, oh, man, I really wish they would do something about it. Nobody. I've heard nobody say to me, and I've heard nobody on social media say, oh, man, I really wish they would bring back the women's tag team championships. Nobody. And that's just like, it's a testament to how poorly executed most of the time, not all of it, most of the time they executed those championships. It felt forced. It never felt organic. It was just trying to get them, no matter, even if it made sense or not, get them all on the same level as the men, even if they weren't ready for this yet. So this to me is a blessing in disguise with Sasha and Naomi walking out. If they come back or don't, right now they have the benefit of being able to quietly kind of put them on the shelf, the championships, until they've established a women's tag team division. We're going to really find out, now that there's no championship for the time being, if they're going to truly take it serious by building a tag team division and then introducing the tag team championships. That's how they should have done it. Instead, they introduced the championship with no tag teams. So now they have the opportunity to do it the right way, and we'll see if they actually are able to do it. And to your point about the DDT, I like when they reestablish things that should be finishers as finishers. DDT is one of them. Think about what you're doing. You're driving all of your body weight and putting it on the skull of that individual and driving it into the mat. I mean, it should be a finish. It's a knockout move. I mean, It should be, along with the super kick, which Dolph Ziggler has reintroduced, as well as Carmella, who uses the super kick. The Usos overuse it, but they also have used it as finishes at times. So I like things like that being reintroduced. We have Gunther, who's using the power bomb as a finish. I love this stuff because we've been so educated over the years to just think that these are transition moves when instead they should be finishes. I love this kind of stuff. And like you said, yeah, Alexa Bliss would have been a perfect fit in the Judgment Day, no doubt.
Yeah, and to go along with the tag team division, like, yeah, I do not miss those, like, one bit. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool for, you know, when they first introduced it and had that Elimination Chamber match and whatnot. But if you're gonna have any of these up and coming wrestlers that have a lot of talent, you know, the only thing that is available for them is the Money in the Bank. So I don't know what you would want to call it, but they need to have some form of intercontinental or U.S. title, some mid-level card champion. So you know that, you know, they're on the rise, and it would just, I think it would still keep the women's division, you know, up top when you have a second type, you know, a second tier title. I think that would give a lot of opportunities and, you know, more opportunities in pay-per-views as well. I think maybe with the tag team, they're like with many others that might be inexperienced or not ready. It allows them not to, you know, be wrestling the entire match and, you know, still learning from experienced wrestlers. But yeah, I think a second tier title would be great. But again, like I said, all I can do is pray for something like that to happen. I think it would be beneficial for certain ones, like especially like, you know, I know she's SmackDown Women's Champion, but like Liv Morgan would have been perfect to have some form of like mid-level championship, so you knew that she was on the rise. So
Exactly, yeah, I'm all for it as long as the depth is there, because if they have too many championships in a women's division that is already thin, then it holds less value. But I think now they you know, with a returning Charlotte hopefully on the way, Bayley is you know, we've been getting teases of Bayley returning for like 6 months, it feels like. You know, if Sasha Banks ever returns, if Naomi ever returns, they're out there. You know, there are, and of course, any NXT call-ups, that kind of thing. And so there are women out there that you could point to and say, hey, you know, they could be your women's champion, and then you have enough depth to present a mid-card championship. The only issue I have with that is like, okay, well, then there'll never be a women's match again ever that is about personal feuds, where a lot of the men's, you know, are, where it's few championships and a lot of personal feuds. And most of the women's matches, every time we see them fight, it's all for the championship, and there's never any like blood rivalries or storytelling there that's outside of the championship picture. That's the only concern I'd have about it. But yeah, so anything else before we move on?
Just one other opportunity which they both failed on, both the male and females, is King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring.
No, Queen's Crown. It's Queen's Crown. For whatever reason, they did cite it. Yeah, I know. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, Xavier didn't do anything with that. Yeah, he had a little FaceTime with Roman Reigns, and then you had Zelina Vega, and it's just like, all right, like, come on. Like, she already had a title match, you know, way back when, and didn't even stand a chance. So I think that's another one right there, because I remember years past when you won that, like, that's essentially you just won a number one contenders match to face whatever champion of your choosing. So besides Money in the Bank, that would be another one right there. You know, hopefully that maybe they'll change that narrative as well.
Unfortunately, all the King of the Ring, and we'll call it Queen of the Ring because that's what it is, the only benefit you get from that now, perceivably, is that you get to dress up and play pretend as an actual king or queen, and everyone else around you is supposed to pretend that you are as well. I mean, that's all you get. You get to play dress up for a few months. That's the only prize you win. Everyone gets a scepter and the crown, and we're all supposed to play along, and then they adopt these phony accents to be funny or whatever. Like, that's it. That's the extent of it, and that's all. It used to mean so much more back in the day. So yeah. All right, let's move on here to the Usos and Omos versus the Street Profits and R-Truth. Of course, we had the Usos and Omos beat the Street Profits and R-Truth. Omos did end up winning here, as he was the victor for his team. What did you make of this matchup?
It was okay. Like, again, repetitive, because we all know that, with these tag team titles, I'm not sure if they're going to lose them before Roman, loses his titles. My guess is, I in a perfect world, I'd like to see the Usos lose them at WrestleMania as well as Roman lose it, and it just all crumbles all at once in the big stage. But it's definitely a hint that, Omos is going to be the special guest referee, which that just solidifies them retaining the titles at SummerSlam. But any chance I get to see Montez Ford out there, I know we've talked numerous times about this. He's a future main eventer, I think, and they don't necessarily need to break up the Street Profits. They can kind of go the route of like the New Day. They're just kind of supportive. They don't really need to break them up. And if they did, kind of do the quote unquote draft. But yeah, I think it was just a filler. And also it was just sort of a way to remind everyone that Montez Ford didn't technically get pinned correctly as his shoulder was up in the last pay-per-view. But yeah, it was something to watch. Again, it was a filler for me. But again, I always enjoy seeing Ford out there and see how high he can get up in the air. He's an extreme talent. And again, I hope they take their time with him and they don't waste that potential.
I hope not. I think they know what they have in Montez Ford, and I would love to see eventually this team break up and have Angelo Dawkins turn heel. Although Montez Ford could turn heel, I think the fans recognize his ability. They respect him. He's the glue of that group. And you and I have said, I mean, Montez Ford is a future WWE Universal Heavyweight whatever champion. I mean, he is. And so I'm looking forward to that. There's some juice left to squeeze out of the Street Profits for sure, but I don't think it's too much longer until they break up and we have a solo run. But this matchup was fine. R-Truth, when he comes out there, he's a guy that just automatically connects with the crowd. I mean, the connection he has with the audience is actually pretty amazing. The way that he's able to just connect, and people still, find him entertaining at his age and how long he's been with the organization. And I love R-Truth. He's got a very likable quality to him. It's really hard to dislike R-Truth. And he's done so much great comedy work that's really, really hard to do in wrestling. I mean, real organic comedy is so difficult to do. And R-Truth has just been, excellent, and he's excelled at that. But he also is a guy that is really good in the ring, especially at his age. And it's a shame they never really gave him a run, because I think, given the connection you have, which is very rare with the fans organically, that they never gave him a run, even if it's a short month or two, just to have a top championship and give the fans that feel good moment. He certainly has that, and he's been relegated to comedy segments and 24/7 titles, and he's excelled at that. But I think there was more, and it's a shame that they never really decided to go with him in terms of just for a few months to have some fun and give him a moment and the fans a moment. But this matchup was fine. It was all about Omos and his. I'm going to start also doing like drinking games or some kind of game where every time Omos roars, you have to do something. I mean, Omos, I think, is playing a little bit too much on his kind of comfort, whatever he's doing. I mean, he doesn't talk much, but he's trying to emote the same emotion all the time. I would like to see a bit of a range from Omos. It's very one-dimensional right now. In the ring, he's as good as you could possibly expect from that size of a man. But I'd like to see more from him other than just him roaring like a lion every 5 seconds when he knocks somebody down.
Yeah, I think he's, if anyone watches sports and knows this quote, like he's just happy to be there. I don't think he's looking at the big picture of like, I want to be a future champion. I think he's just happy to have this opportunity to be in the ring and get as much spotlight as he has. Luckily having MVP kind of speak for him, but, we've seen these big giants come and go. So, unless a guy comes out there, 500 pounds in 10 feet, it's going to be the same kind of gimmick every time. Unless, the last one that I saw, that had pretty good talent, obviously The Undertaker, but like Braun Strowman. Braun could, he could really move around quite a bit for his size and his height. But I would like to see him actually roar, but like actually have fear, because when he does, I just kind of laugh myself. So I'm not sure if he's sort of like just trying to make people laugh or whatnot, but that's definitely a drinking game that I think everyone would enjoy.
Yeah, maybe he can adopt the Shanky perspective and just start dancing. Like, I think every time he hears music, just start just dancing or something.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, no, I think Omos has a bright future. I do think at some point he'll hold a top championship, but I don't think it's going to be in 2022. Maybe in 2023 or beyond. But he's not ready yet, and that's okay. He's got some growing to do, especially on the mic. How does he deal with it without somebody to speak for him, that kind of thing. So, all right, let's see here. Then we get to the main event. Riddle and Bobby Lashley, they take out Seth Rollins and Theory after Riddle hit Theory with an RKO. Ziggler returns in the middle of the match. If anybody had money on Ziggler coming back in the main event, you are a rich person today, because there is nobody who has thought that Ziggler, out of everybody coming down to the ring in a suit, would be coming back in the middle of this match. I can't even remember the last time Ziggler was not only on my TV screen, but in the main event of a show. I really don't know. And he also is not a heel, which is weird. So he comes out, he ends up shoving Theory's feet off the ropes. He was trying an illegal pin. It set up Riddle to hit the match-ending RKO, and then after the match, Ziggler hit Theory with a super kick, a really nice one, after the show, or as the show went off the air. So, your take?
Yeah, before even the match started, I'm not sure because I think you were saying that you kind of catch the highlights on Hulu. So there was a little backstage segment with Bobby Lashley and Riddle, and you know how Riddle goes on his rants and stuff, and he name drops the Stranger Things. And,
I saw that. Yes. Yep.
Oh, I just lost it there, and but it was just funny because at first when Bobby Lashley being a babyface, I was just like, I really did want that to happen because I did like him as a babyface, in his first run with WWE, but this one it was just kind of forced. But I think him being around other babyfaces, like he kind of blends in, so the spotlight's not totally on him. But I did like the match because all four of those guys are extremely talented. I'll watch all four of those guys wrestle any day of the week, regardless of what the storyline is. I don't know what's going on with like Riddle and Rollins, because again, I'm worried about that because Riddle is on the rise, and it's just like Rollins has done his dues. He has taken loss after loss. He's putting people over. It's time for him to regain some dominance, as a heel, as a champion. If that happens in 2023 at the Rumble or WrestleMania, whatever. But no, it was great. The one thing that I'm sort of getting tired of is the spears through the barricade. That it seems to be happening a lot, more often than not. The only thing I did like about it was I didn't see it coming, with the video angle. But, and then with, what's his name? Ziggler. It was just kind of random and literally like out of nowhere. Like it made absolutely no sense. Him just sitting there. The only thing I can say is to WWE creative, please, from the bottom of my heart, do not F this up, please. Because I loved seeing Ziggler as a face when he was on that Intercontinental run with Miz years ago. So I don't know what his angle is going to be, if he wants to maybe like sort of like put a stipulation and challenge Theory for that Money in the Bank. I don't know, or screw them over and then they'll have their own storyline. But we've seen things like this happen all the time where there's heel or face changes, but then there's no direction. There's no explanation in the next week or the week after that. But yeah, the guy, Riddle and Bobby Lashley won, and, he had an amazing RKO. And earlier in the match, I forgot what Theory was trying to do to Riddle, but he did an amazing counteractive move and put him in the arm bar. I mean, that's just coming from his MMA days, but like I said, the match itself was great, and I just love seeing, like, I was surprised by the chemistry by Bobby Lashley and Riddle, because they've never wrestled together as a team, but all in all, it was great. But definitely right at the end with that super kick, I might be speaking out of context, or but whatever. But when I saw him do that super kick, I felt a little bit of HBK on that one. Yeah, I know it gets used a lot, but that one felt very sweet.
And I was just going to say that and I've seen a ton of super kicks from a ton of people, and I've seen Ziggler himself do hundreds of super kicks. I mean, it may be the most move that we've seen outside of a headlock in WWE in the last 10 years. And out of all of them, that is the one kick that I have seen that I can remember that actually nearly mirrored HBK the way he does it. Because everyone's tried, and people come close. This was almost a carbon copy. It was perfectly. The way that he did it was great. So if he was trying to mimic HBK exact, he got it. And the way Theory sold it, it was perfect. So yeah, I would agree. It was the most HBK-esque kick I've ever seen outside of HBK himself doing it. So, props to that. I don't know where the hell they're going with Ziggler. I don't think anyone knows. That's the point. But I also have low confidence that WWE knows where they're going, given how they don't seem to know how to even mid-range book, that they just do stuff. And they're like, well, we'll figure it out on the back end. We'll just do this and it'll work itself out. I feel like a lot of production meetings go that way because that's the result of a lot of things that they do is they do something, it's interesting, people are like interested and, oh my God, where are they going with this? And they, get rid of Edge, or they do Retribution, or they do Raw Underground. And you're like, okay, this is interesting, you have my attention, and it goes nowhere. And I don't have a whole lot of faith that they have a long-term story for this. And if they do, wonderful, but they haven't given me a lot of evidence to think otherwise. But I'm all for it. Like Ziggler, like you said, I remember that was the most memorable part of his career for me was the Intercontinental Championship matches he had with Miz, and I think he put his career on the line at one point, and he was getting very emotional, and that was the most I ever felt for his character. And if they do that again here, I have no problem with him going babyface. I just hope that his promos aren't all screaming, because I feel like Ziggler yells a lot in his promos, so maybe he could find his promo voice that isn't all just yelling. But he's good on the mic. Obviously, we all know what he is in the ring. And so I'm cool with it. If anybody's a Ziggler fan out there that's like, hey, they haven't done anything with him, he's never in the main event, well, you got a little bit of something to hang your hat on here of Ziggler potentially being in some kind of main event title picture. Maybe it's not the Universal Championship or the Heavyweight Championship, but it could be the Money in the Bank briefcase, or it could be the United States Championship if Theory wins that. I mean, so there's different directions they can go, but it has me interested, and people are like, "Wow, what the hell?" So I'm looking forward to it. The last thing I'll say, and I'll toss it to you, with Seth Rollins, I'm concerned. Like I'm legitimately concerned about his career right now. Not that he's not being showcased, not that he's going to get fired or anything like that, or that they've forgotten about him, but just maybe they don't have plans for him. I mean, I keep thinking they're going to get him into the championship picture. Okay, they're going to do it at WrestleMania. Nope, Brock and Roman at WrestleMania. Okay, they're going to do the Money in the Bank ladder match. Nope, Theory wins that. And it's like Seth Rollins right now is a guy that gets he beat Ezekiel last week. Okay, I mean that's the last victory I can think of with Seth, at least in the last few months. So, like, where is Seth Rollins going? He's a polished character, one of the best talents in WWE today. He's in his prime. You don't have to worry about age yet. I mean, he's got how many championships and pedigree under his belt, and yet they just are letting him kind of flounder out there and cut his promos, but don't really do anything. Seth Rollins right now, it has me concerned they don't have any long-term plans.
Yeah, and I was actually, after rewatching some of the highlights this morning, I looked him up. I'm like, all right, he's 36 right now. Like, especially his style of fighting, he's probably got a solid 4 more years of like that high intensity before he probably has to change up a few of his moves. But and the thing I could see, and I really would like them to split up the titles because, let's not forget about Cody Rhodes, potentially returning back at Royal Rumble. I honestly could see Seth winning the Royal Rumble, taking out, kind of being shady and sneaking a win and getting Cody over, to win it all. But since the belts are separated, Seth goes for the Universal, and Cody, like he said, he wants that WWE championship belt. I don't know. It's very interesting, and I understood, at a certain point, maybe because it was father time, Becky just having the kid, so he probably wanted to not really be in the title scene. But again, we look back at it, and rumors are rumors, but I heard that Roman didn't get COVID during the day one pay-per-view. Seth was supposed to win that fatal 4-way one, and maybe it would have been Seth versus Roman at WrestleMania for the main event. I have no idea. It's a shame right now, but Seth is a guy though, I think being a veteran, he'll speak his words. So obviously what's going on right now, if he's not happy with it, he would be expressing his voice and his feelings towards this, because he's just way too good of a guy, whether it's on the mic or in the ring. And again, these last two Money in the Banks, I thought he was going to win. This would have been come full circle. I know it could be repetitive, but I really saw, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns one last time at SummerSlam. Last man standing. They're at the count of 7 or 8. Seth Rollins has the Money in the Bank, comes right back out, just like that WrestleMania. I know it was similar, but that would have been a cool come full circle again. But yeah, man, I hope he finds a good storyline. And with Ziggler, that to me, and I'm just speculating, maybe because Ziggler is back and kind of, did that to Theory, that Theory will actually maybe win the U.S. title back, and then he'll have some type of thing going on, with the U.S. title and the Money in the Bank, with Ziggler, and then, Bob, because I understand Bobby Lashley, he's a good champion and everything, but I still think he has a couple good years of being a main eventer and being a champion. But again, we're kind of held down tight on this because there's only one belt. There needs to be, he's essentially the Raw's champion, as close as it can be, but they need to separate those belts. I don't care what has to be done. You can, Roman could literally come to Raw or SmackDown and be like, yeah, I just don't want this belt anymore. I don't care. And then we can finally have some legitimate storylines, because you are taking away so many good wrestlers' talent and storylines and potential, and you're handicapping it, and you're not allowing them to be at their full potential. There's only so many wrestlers that can challenge them. And, totally off topic, but it just because I know you mentioned it on the review, it just annoys me that, in number one contenders match for Clash of Clans or whatever, and it's we're not even done this SummerSlam pay-per-view, and you're already talking about the number one contender for the next one. So they're just making it way too easy for us to predict these match outcomes. So.
Yeah, Clash at the Castle next month. Is it next month or is it September? I think it's in August.
Yeah.
Which is weird. To me, August is always SummerSlam. It's got me all screwed up. And then they're doing Saturday pay-per-views, and it's I don't know what they're doing. But when they do that, and you're like, well, Roman's champion till here, so anything that happens between now and then, he's not gonna drop the belt. But that's, to me, and I was a Roman Reigns defender of this whole storyline longer than most. I held out. I held my ground, and people were tired of it. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys don't understand. This is a legendary run. But to me, over the last month or so, I've finally caved, and I've said I'm done, because of that very fact. That was the tipping point for me when I'm looking at Raw, just constantly without a top champion, constantly not having that belt that the guys could fight for, and them taking the opportunity opportunities away from people like Seth Rollins, like Riddle, that are on Raw, that they could have that opportunity, and they're holding it hostage with a guy that's at every third show of SmackDown and every other pay-per-view. And it's just, at this point, it's a law of diminishing returns. To me, it's a total net negative now, and I hate saying that given how great Roman's run has been, but you have to look at it at this stage and not be selfish and say, okay, well, great run, legendary run, historic run, number 4 in all of championship runs in WWE, great. Now it's time to give it back to the guys. Like you said, I don't care how it happens. If Vince comes out on Monday night and he's like, hey, no, we're splitting the belts, whatever, don't care. I'm usually about congruity and logic and storylines. I will give this one a total hall pass. I don't care what or how sloppy or how bad the writing is. I don't care if somebody's 4-year-old kid writes the story and it's embarrassing on TV. I don't care. I just want the championship back to Raw. I don't want to be saying this, but the way that they've executed this with Roman since WrestleMania has been a total absentee champion, which has been really, really hurting Raw way more than I think it should be. And that's where the breaking point for me was. So I don't care how the hell they do it. I will allow total sloppiness and just awful writing for this one benefit to get the championship back to Raw. I don't care how it happens.
Yeah, and you can have a champion like that as long as there's another champion on the other brand. Like Brock, he did that a bunch, but whether he was on SmackDown or Raw, the other champion was there full time. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But like, I look back at Charlotte when she won the NXT title against Rhea Ripley a couple of WrestleManias ago. She was there on like every show, whether she was just doing a promo or defending it. And it's just like, that's a champion right there. But you know what? I don't know, because I know you mentioned about, with The Rock and Roman, I don't know if The Rock will, want to be associated with it, with all these allegations with Vince, but it's like, if that truly is a possibility going down the line for WrestleMania in LA, then he has to lose it before that, because I do not want The Rock versus Roman. Nobody wants The Rock versus Roman for the title, because who, like, Rock's not going to be a full-time wrestler after that. So that would just kind of be a gimme. So I'd rather just have them just like, almost like brother versus brother, and like family versus who is the head of the table. And I think that's a better stipulation than a championship match.
Oh God, 100 times. And the outcome of the match is much more unpredictable. And that's all you need. You don't need a championship mucking up the whole thing. It's all about head of the table. It's family driven. That's all you need. And I don't think that Vince sees it that way. Just like you saw this year, he feels like more is always better. And that's not the case with what he did this past year with Roman and Brock, taking the both top championships, sticking into a unification match, and then trying to force feed us the marketing that it's the biggest WrestleMania match of all time, which of course we all know is a blatant lie, and it didn't even live up to a quarter of that in terms of the match quality. I don't think their match was that great at WrestleMania. So, I mean, yeah.
I mean, you could even say the one before that, Edge and Daniel Bryan and Roman, was 20 times better than that one. Yeah. So yeah.
Hell yeah. And so, you take all that and put it together, guys. It's just super simple to do. I don't care. Here's the thing. You could have your cake and eat it too with WWE. You could find a way legally. They could draw up a contract, come up with some, schmaz storyline that they're going to end up giving a championship back to Raw. Roman will, be graceful enough as our tribal chief to grace WWE or Raw with a championship. He's still able to continue his run as Universal Champion, which is what championship he held to begin with at SummerSlam in 2020, 2 years ago. So they could still have his run going, but at least have a top champion on Raw. I think they have to be regretting unifying those championships. I mean, so that's how you do it. You keep Roman's streak going if you want, and give Raw a championship. That's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, anything else or any other topics you want to discuss before we wrap it up?
No, man. Just happy to be back on this podcast with you, man. It's always been a pleasure butting heads. I think one person said on our last podcast, we got Ian talking about certain things as the devil, and then we got Matt on the other side talking as the angel. And I'm like, yeah, that's what makes it work. So always good chemistry talking with you, and definitely looking forward to doing more podcasts or different formats of the podcast in the future.
Absolutely, and I know you've got some life-changing events coming up, so that'll be priority fairly soon. But anytime you can find an hour or so in your crazy schedule, we'll definitely link up.
Oh, for certain, man. I greatly appreciate it.
So, all right, buddy. Well, you have a good night.
All right, take care, man.
You too.
Bye.
So in addition to pro wrestling that I need every day, I don't know about you, I need coffee every day, and I need quality coffee. That's why I go with coffeeofvalhalla.com. They get fresh roasted specialty coffee, roasted the day it ships to your door. Again, it's coffeeofvalhalla.com. That's coffee of VALHALLA.com, because the owner is a former service member trying to take care of his battle buddies. He donates 50% of the proceeds to StopSoldierSuicide.org. So order today and use discount code 10OFF, all one word, for a 10% discount, or you can subscribe and save 15% off of your order. So go get some coffee again at coffeeofvalhalla.com, coffeeofvalhalla.com, guys. And also donate to a great cause and have a great cup of coffee, guys. Coffeeofvalhalla.com.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.